Yo, Spectre here. Today I'll be showing you how to create a retro vintage TV stack in Blender. So the first thing you're going to do is pull up Blender. And I will be creating a new scene. First, remove everything from the scene. Next, you're going to import a GLB file. I'll be linking it in the description. It's going to be the actual city of the entire scene. So go over to File and then Import. And where it says GLB/GLTF, click on that. And then go over to your downloads or wherever you have your GLB file stored. And it's going to be called 7 Stars Brick Lane. Then hit import. And then you're going to see the actual mini city plane show up. And then if you go over to the rendered view, you can see that it's a 3D scan. And I was able to station in this little area here. It caught my attention for some reason, but yeah, so also we're going to import a table. So go over to File again, then Import GLB, and the same, look for your actual file, and I've got mine here. And then hover over, and it's going to be on top of the plane. So make sure to bring it down. And we can also move our cursor. That way, whenever we're moving things around and importing, they actually land right in front of us. And you can adjust it the way you like it. You can also use the object properties here and then start rotating. But also make sure that you select the mode to where it says XYZ Euler. That way you don't get confused with all of the different axes. And also it might be a little bit difficult trying to actually like pan around. So try to zoom in exactly like where you can see it. It might be hard, but just pan around. Okay, here I'm just gonna move it. Okay, I've got the table ready, and now we're gonna add a image texture on it. So click on the table, and then where it says here table empty, remove the actual material slot, and then go over to new, and then go over to base color, and go to image texture. And then where it says open, look for the wooden material that, and also I'll be leaving it in a description. Click on the wood, and then open image. And then now you're going to see the actual material. Then above your table, put your cursor above, because we will be importing the TVs now. And then now go over to File and then Import. And this time it's going to be FBX. Go over again to your downloads and look for the Soviet folder. It's going to be Soviet TV. And go to Source. And then Soviet SPFBX. And hit Import. And it's going to be right above. So click on the Soviet LOL. And then on the object properties, decrease the Z-axis. And it's going to be huge. So we're going to scale it down. So hit S. And then make it smaller. And it might be difficult since it is a small little alleyway. And then lay it above the table. So start rotating it. But before we proceed, let's add a actual skin to it. And it does come in the pack. So go over to your material properties. And then remove the default material. Hit new. Go over to base color. And then also image texture. And then open. And go over to your downloads and look for the Soviet folder. And then it says textures. And then it does come with 5. And depending on which color you want to use. We are going to use 4 of them in this tutorial. So let's do first the all black metallic. Hit open image. And it's on now. You can't really see it at the moment because we do need a sun above, which we'll go into in a second. Okay, so it does appear that it is facing the opposite way. So go over to your object properties and then start rotating the rotation. And start placing it right above And you may want to get even closer just to make sure that they're not overlapping with the table and the TV. Okay, now let's start making a duplicate on the TVs. So click on the TV and then do Control C and then do Control V. And then hit G and the letter X and then start moving one of them around. Just enough to where they're barely touching. And also to keep yourself organized, label your TVs. So this one can be TV number 1 or however you want, and then the other one can be TV 2. And then now click on both, do Shift and click on both, Control C and then Control V, and then do also G and the letter Z, and then start scaling up, and then just enough to where they're barely touching. And since we did do duplicates on these, let's label them as well. TV 3, and the other one, let's do TV 4. Since we already have the skin unpack on one of them, let's change the rest of them. So let's click on the lower bottom TV, and then go over to your materials, and then on the folder, click on it, and then let's do the purple material. And this one above, click and then do the same thing. Let's give it a different feel. Let's go with the gray. And then this one, let's do the original with the vintage color one. Okay, now it's starting to look good. Okay, now let's add a sun. So you'll hit Shift A and then go over to where it says light and then do sun. And let's give it a strength of 20. Let's kind of maybe decrease this down a little bit. And let's see where the sun is. Okay, so it is underneath us. So let's start bringing it up. So let's do G and Z. And then let's bring it up high. And it's also maybe let's back it up. So let's do G and the letter Y. Okay, now it is time to create the screens for the TV. We'll be using a plane. So do Shift A and then go over to mesh and where it says plane. And then start rotating the rotation to 90 degrees. And then bring the plane a little bit out forward. And then rise it above. Then hit tab. And then right click, subdivide. And where it says number of cuts, do 4. Then hit tab again. And then click on the side and select only the edges. And then do the same on the bottom one. But make sure to hold Shift. And then the same on the other. And then let's go up. And then what you're going to do is hit Control Shift B. And then with the mouse wheel, make sure to scroll up like about 3 times. And then you can see if you move your mouse forward, you're going to start making the edges rounded. And just make it enough to where it fits on the TV screen to make it look flush. Then hit tab again. And what we're going to do is we're going to scale and then make sure that the screen fits or the plane fits on the screen. So it's S and then make sure to hold X to widen the screen. And you can do the same thing with S and then you do the letter Y. You might have to press it again 2 times. And you can notice that it does the vertical alignment. Okay, so now we're going to get closer to the screen and scale this down so it can be smaller. And let's do the top TV first on the top left. And we might need to get closer. Okay, now let's adjust it. So do S and letter X. Okay, so now that you've got this together, you can just also duplicate the plane and then just align it on the other TVs. So the same thing as duplicating the TVs, you can duplicate the planes, hit Control C and then Control V, and then just start moving it, hit G and the X, and start placing them down. Do another one, Control C, Control V, then G and Z, and the same, Control C, Control V, and then G and the letter Z. Do Control C, Control V, then hit G and the letter X to move to the side. And then now we got the TV screens. Okay, now it is time to import the video footage onto the plane. I'll be leaving 3 of the video footages on the description. One is missing because that one's going to be saying Spectre. You can just create your own and replace it on the missing video footage on one of the TVs. Okay, so now we're going to add the actual video footage onto the plane. That way it looks like the TV is actually playing something. So click on one of the planes and then go over to your materials and then hit new. And now go over to where it says shading. And you can also pan down to kind of see what's happening here. And then now go over to, and now you can also disconnect these 2 nodes because we will be using some other ones. So hit Shift A and then search, and then emissions, and then hook emissions to surface. And you can also do Shift A, search, and then image texture, and then connect both together, and then hit open, and then look for your video footage wherever you have that at. Okay, and then now you can zoom in to kind of see what you're doing here. And where it says frames, you can do up to like 500 frames, or depending on how many frames you're going to use on your entire scene. But we will be using 500 in this one. And then make sure that auto refresh is selected, and you can start the frame on frame 0. That way it looks smooth as soon as it begins. And you can go over back to your layout, and now if you hit the spacebar, you can see the video footage playing in the background. And now make sure to do that on every single plane, the exact same process and steps. If you notice that your videos are mirrored, all you gotta do is just change the rotation over on the plane. So select on one of the images, or I mean plane, then hit G and Y, and then pull it up, and then go over to your object properties. On the rotation Z-axis, just flip it around. For this instance is -180. Just place it back, and just make sure to align it how it was, and just do the same to all the other ones if that's the issue that's going on. Okay, now let's go for a playback. Everything seems good, and now we're gonna move on over to setting up the camera. Hit Shift A, and then if you go down over, you'll see the camera, and then just look for it over. Click on the camera and then just see where it's at, and it was right there in front where we left the cursor. And you can do is right click on it and then set active camera, and if you hit N, you can just position it over. And what you can do too as well is go over to your object data properties, and if you look at the focal length, you can decrease this so you can get a much better view of the entire scene. And for this demonstration, we're going to do 20 mm. Then that way we have a much cleaner and wider view of everything. Now let's set up a path for your camera to follow. So do Shift A and then go over to curve and then Bezier. And you're going to notice that it's going to be right where the cursor is again. So hover over to your Y on your object data properties and just bring it out. And start levitating it. That way it has a path with a good view. Just to make this a little bit simple, with this path, we're just going to expand it. So just scale it up with hit S, and then make it big enough to where it's covering over the edges of the table. And then just try to bring it a little bit back. Okay, now let's connect the camera over to the Bezier circle. Make sure that the camera is selected and you go over to your object constraint properties, and then you hit add object constraint and do follow path, and then on target do the Bezier curve and make sure you hit animate. And since you're still highlighted on the camera, do Alt and the letter G, and then now go over to your Bezier curve and then go over to your object data properties, and then make sure you click on the path animation and do follow, and make sure your frames match to your frames down here on your timeline where it ends. And then if you hit play, you'll notice that the camera is going to start doing the animation and it will just loop over. And then if you hit the camera and you set active camera, you can kind of see what's happening. And another tip, make sure that your camera is actually tracking one of the TVs. For this instance, we're going to make sure that I am following this bottom left corner. And for me, it's going to be plane number 3 of the actual screen. So now I'm going to head on over to my camera and make sure I am on the object constraint properties, and then add another constraint and do track 2. And where it says target, select it and then look for that plane. And as stated, mine was plane number 3. So it's now going to be tracking this TV here. Now if I hit play, the entire scene now is going to be focused on that direction. Okay, and one last tip too as well, just make sure that your camera or your alignment and of everything is accurately the way you want it to be. So I want a little higher tilt over here on the location of the z-axis, and that way it's capturing more of a leveled look. And now that I'm happy with what my animation's showing, I can go over to my render properties, and we are going to be rendering this with Eevee. You can do cycles if you want to, but for this demonstration, it's going to be with Eevee. Hit on ambient occlusion, do bloom, and then do screen space reflections. Then head on over to output properties and start using your resolution. So for this demonstration, I am doing a 1920 by 1080. But if you want to do like a Instagram reel or something like that, you can do a 1080 and then 1920. Although you will have to slightly change your angles again if you're switching the resolution. Okay, and then for your frame rate, you can do 25. I like 60. Most of my tutorials are in 60 FPS. And then for your output, just where you want to have your output at for your render. And then make sure your file format is switched over to FFmpeg video. And then where it says encoding, make sure that the container is set to MPEG 4. And then your output quality is set over to high quality or lossless, however you want. Right before rendering, make sure to go over to shading. And then where it says object, go to where it says world. Do Shift A and then do environment texture. And then plug in color to color. And then go over to open. Go over to program files and then go to Blender Foundation and then to your latest version of Blender. And then 3.4 to your latest version, data files. And then Studio Lights, World, and do Studio EXR. Then open image. And then if you go over to layout, you should see a much better lighting effect going on. And you can use the Studio Lights over so that you can have those reflections. And then go ahead and do your render. And there you have it, guys. That is how to create a vintage retro TV stack animation in Blender. And if this has helped you in any way or shape or form, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I do release videos every week, so if you're interested in learning how to use Blender or any graphic design tools, make sure to subscribe and follow me on Instagram and TikTok, and I'm also now on Twitter. And I'll leave all the links down in the description, and also everything that I use down in the links below. Thanks for watching.